For this video, we are back in Moho, and we have Copper opened up to test out the motion graph, as well as other keyframe types. So, just to review, as we go through the process of animating on the channels timeline, let's just go to frame 24, and I'm going to use the transform layer tool right here, and come in and just move the character. So I can click and drag, and let's move the character over to the left, and release. You can see here that will create a keyframe on the timeline, and we've dealt with that before. It's essentially a change on the timeline, and we can come in here and see that change take place. But what happens if we add some different dimensions to this? Sure, we're moving it to the left right now, and we're using mostly the X property to do so. But if I were to raise this up or down, we really get no indication that it is going up, down, or even to the left with this keyframe. It's just indicating a change, and that's it. So if you want to refine your movements further, you have the ability to break down the dimensions of each keyframe and alter them on the motion graph. So to do so, let's come over here to the timeline and locate the motion graph. It's going to be the third option next to these graphics, so motion graph. Let's go ahead and click on that. When you enter graph mode, whichever channel you have selected will be the one represented on the graph. To help illustrate this, I'm going to come over here with my layer translation tool and just rotate the character a little bit. And you can see now on the graph timeline, we have added a rotation channel. However, we cannot access this channel. We're only seeing the layer translation channel right now. If you come down here and click once on the layer Z rotation channel, you'll see now we have previews of the different motions occurring with each channel. However, to actually go in and then edit the channel, you'll need to double click on whichever channel you wish to work on. So in this case, if we double click on layer translation, you can see we have some keyframes that pop up, and we're now allowed to go in and alter these as we see fit. And we'll talk more about what these lines represent here in a moment. But here, if you wanted to then switch over and edit the layer rotation channel, you can't just simply click once. That'll remove the preview. You'll need to come in here and double click on it, and now you'll be able to come in here and work with those keyframes with that rotation channel. And finally, when you are in graph mode, just like the channel timeline, you're able to go to any point on the timeline, let's say frame 18 here, and I can double click to add keys, and then I can go in and alter those. And again, we'll be talking more about that here as this video continues. But I just wanted you to know that this is how you can access those channels once you go to graph mode. So here, let's just come back to the channels, and I'm just going to remove the rotation for right now. So that way we have something a little bit more simplified to look at. Now right off the bat, you're going to see some different things here, and I can zoom in and out here just to kind of demonstrate this. You'll see that we have this pink line that's sort of expanding out and then up and down. And it doesn't give us much information beyond that. If I come in here, still on that key, and I click and drag and let's say move him down this way, you can see that there is a change that occurs with these dimensions. But still, it's hard to tell exactly what this is showing us. So one thing we can do is come over here to the layer translation channel, right click, and then choose to separate dimensions. Here, you'll see the channels have been broken up, and we now get a better visual representation of what's going on here. X, Y, and Z are all accounted for and color-coded. So as you can see, because we moved the character up a little bit, the green or Y graph has changed to look like it's going up. And if I were to come in here and just move this a little bit more, you can see that change playing out in real time. And if I came in here to, let's say, the Z properties, and I push this into the background, you can see that the Z graph is being changed. So we have the ability to break this down and look at exactly what this is doing. Now you may notice as we click on certain dimensions and work with this, we have the ability to alter keyframes. Here we have the green dimension, that is the up and down Y dimensions selected. And if I were to grab this keyframe and move it up and down, you can see that we have the ability to move it up and down just like we did when animating it with the layer transform property. Now, if we bring it out more, this is going to just extend the duration of this. So instead of going up in 1 second, we can have it go up in 2 seconds. And you can see how the graph accommodates for that and creates a more natural bend extending all the way to 2 seconds. And you can continue to build up other keyframes with this. So if I went back to, let's say, frame 18, and I grab this and move it, you can see I am creating a third keyframe for this. Go over here, and now we have another keyframe. And you can see how this motion is going to play out just based on adjusting those keyframes. What's more with the motion graph is you can adjust your points as Beziers, making the curves even more refined. So as an example, I'm just going to come in here, making sure I can select all these keys. So I'll just select these 3 keys just by clicking and dragging. And then you have 2 options for adjusting your keys. You can come over here to this drop-down menu where it says smooth, because these keys are currently set to smooth. And you could choose, in this case, Bezier from the list. And you can also, if you want, right-click on a key and then choose to set it up that way if you wish as well. And what I did here was create Beziers. So now you can see that we have these little handles that we can adjust to create more refined curves if that's something that we need. So here you can see now we've created more of a wavy effect for when he's going up and down, almost creating a nice little bounce. So you can just come in here and you can keep adjusting. As you can see, I can do some pretty crazy things with this, and you're able to go in and make those adjustments. Now, before we end this video, let's look at some other keyframe types. First, I'm just going to come in here and remove these keys. But before I do that, let me also point out, you do have the ability to come over here and consolidate your layer channels back if you wish. So you can see we can just go in and do that, and we can toggle it off. So once you're done with this, if you no longer want all this on screen, you can do so. You can also right click here on any of these channels and choose to rejoin the dimensions. And you can see here, it'll bring it back to the pink outline. So I'm just going to come in and remove these keys for right now. And let's rejoin the dimensions. Now I'll go back to my channels timeline here and just remove any keys. So now we're back at default. I'm just going to come over here and maybe shrink the character down a little bit on frame 1 and bring him to the right. And then on frame 24, he can go over here to the left. So it's just going to look like this. Now, let me actually put this out to about 33 so we have a little bit more time. There we go. Now, we can continue to adjust keyframes as I alluded to. So if we wanted to make it so the movement isn't smooth, because that's what it's currently set to, it has this nice little smooth effect to it, you could right click or click on the key that you want to alter and come over here to your drop down menu, and we can choose linear in this case. You'll notice that the keyframe changes its icon to indicate what kind of key it is. And it might be kind of hard to tell, but now it's maintaining its speed consistently all the way throughout the animation. Now, another way to tell this too is to come in and use the motion graph itself. So you can see here, we're able to track this movement. And actually, let me come in here and just separate out the dimensions again so it's even more explicit. You can see that the X property has this very nice steep decline going all the way down. There's no curvature to indicate any changes to that motion. However, if we were to take these dimensions and let's do bounce. Now we have that new icon. If I come over here to the graph, you can definitely see what this is doing to that X property. And definitely we can see it visually too, that once it hits the end, it bounces back and forth until it reaches a point where it's no longer bouncing. And this is just a very basic example of how you can adjust these motions with the motion graph. Of course, as you start to animate your own characters, get into your own scenes, I bet you'll find different ways to tweak the animation just right so that way it's pleasing to your eye and it's exactly how you want it to be. So be sure to keep that motion graph in mind as well as the other keyframe types, as that can help you save time and refine enough to get something pleasing for the eye.